out is, and I was not intending on testifying today until it was brought to my attention, House Bill 4468, the decriminalization of marijuana, possession of marijuana. I do not know what to think about this piece of legislation. There are some legislation that's filed in this Commonwealth that doesn't make sense, and this is just one of those pieces of legislation that just doesn't make sense. And I saw the board leading into this room that showed that 57% of people in my district voted to decriminalize and also lessen marijuana. And my community is one of the communities that's hit the hardest by people using drugs. Drugs are illegal. You're going to hear somebody talking about, I saw some flyers floating around here, about alcohol and marijuana. They're two very different substances. And if we want to outlaw alcohol, let's do it. But I can tell you one thing, marijuana is a gateway drug. There is no one sitting in our jails today who have been arrested for an ounce of marijuana. They might be arrested for an ounce of marijuana and their rap sheet longer than that, but they're not in jail for an ounce of marijuana. And I don't think it makes sense, and it's not good policy. Because what happens in this case is, what happens if somebody gets caught with one Oxycontin pill? They didn't have a whole bag of them, they just had one of them. Or just a little bit of heroin. They didn't have a lot of heroin, they had just a little bit of heroin. And I just think that this legislation, I hope this legislation does not go anywhere, and I also intend on doing everything in my power as an elected official to fight the ballot question, because it just doesn't make sense. In no cases can this be explained to me in a proper way that decriminalizing an ounce of marijuana makes sense in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's a gateway drug. The next step after marijuana potentially could be Oxycontin, heroin, and then the next step after that is, we all know, jails, mental institutions, or death, by which the state puts hundreds of millions of dollars a year into recovery programs to fight drug use in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. What we should be doing is trying to find ways of stemming the use of drugs rather than the way of promoting how to beat the system when you get arrested for the possession of marijuana. So I just want to put that out there, and thank you for taking the time.
Any questions at all, Representative? Seeing none, thank you.
John spoke that marijuana is a gateway drug.
Okay, well, unfortunately for Mr. Walsh, according to the Department of Health and Human Services, back in 1997, over 10 years ago, there's actually no evidence of a gateway theory. It's kind of been proven all across the world, not that, the U.S. government trusts that research done in other countries for marijuana, but the reality of the situation is the congressman made himself look like a fool.
I was trying not to laugh. I was right up front, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get kicked out of here for laughing.
You just basically sat in front of a public hearing and told the 51% of you said that 51% of your voting constituency was out of their mind.
Yeah.
This doesn't have a place.
And that we're all going to be in mental hospitals. We're all going to be in mental hospitals.
I know.
That sounded like 1950s, and this kid's young.
It's crazy that just the way I don't think any of us who were here in support of the bill expected the transition.
Oh, I was psyched there. I was laughing and I was smiling. I was like, Martin Walsh, you're my new poster boy. YouTube, look it up, brother.
See you guys again. We're back. Only this time we got 80,000 people signed up on an initiative. Now, the initiative may be good, the initiative may be bad, the initiative is probably, as our former president, Mr. Saunders, told you, going to pass. But you can do it sooner, and you can do it better. We've been here since Senator Shannon first introduced the equivalent of 1121 back in 2000. You've had my 1011 before you since 2000. If you were to take either 1011 alone, I think it's great, myself. But if you can at least take the splitting of the fines between the state and the municipality in which it occurred, use our current civil violation speeding ticket procedures, and graft that on to Senator Jalen's bill, you have a bill that generates more revenue, will result in more police encounters, resulting in the Commonwealth getting revenue, provide us with the data we need to prove to you that if you legalize it and apply the $3.50 tax currently imposed by Chapter 64K, you will be generating more revenue than the casinos are going to generate after every state in New England has casinos. That's $100 million a year for the state, I'm thinking, and roughly the same amount for the municipalities, because we all know, and it's in our testimony, and the Chief of Police from Everett was kind enough to say this when a reporter for Globe North encountered him. Officers in Everett encounter marijuana users and sellers on a regular basis, but they don't always arrest them. Most times the officers use their discretion. Now the question is, what discretion do they use? Do they use the, well, we're going to destroy marijuana and go home? Or do they use, we're going to get a summons? I submit to you that all too often, for purposes of enforcement, it's they destroy the marijuana and they tell the offender to go home, which doesn't help me as a parent who is due at his second child's last spring concert this evening at 7 o'clock, 30 miles north of here. And I want to know, as a parent, even though I have been an advocate for changing the marijuana laws for years, I want to know. And under either one of those bills, the parent would be notified virtually immediately, whereas under the initiative, they may not be. So, as we say on page 2 of our written testimony, the first thing you got to do is repeal the power of the police to hold a person before the bail magistrate simply because they possess marijuana. That's a real easy thing to do. That creates uniformity of enforcement. Require the police to hold a person under 18 so that their parents do find out about it. So the parent, who is the best anti-drug, can immediately get involved. 3, make possession of marijuana a civil violation. 4, follow the procedures of the Massachusetts Uniform Citation for Enforcement. Split the revenue between the municipality and the state, because the parents, they're under 16, the police will tell them about chins. The police can get a chin for a child under 16. For the child over 16, it's a little bit more difficult, but because of insurance, people like my wife, who is a licensed drug and alcohol counselor, the police can tell parents about that and see to it that their child gets evaluated, because unfortunately somebody earlier testified that marijuana users need rehabilitation. Marijuana users don't need rehabilitation. Most marijuana users never get caught. 600,000 in the Commonwealth, they never get caught. As you know from my testimony 2 years ago, we're number 1. And as you know, Mr. O'Flaherty, we're back in part because you encouraged us not to give up. So if the gentleman, you don't remember saying that? He remembers that. He remembers that. We all remember that. We know that cities like Brockton, Bronx, and other violent crimes, but if you know, the police aren't encountering or even enforcing the marijuana laws in your cities and towns. And I don't know about you, Bob, but I didn't see any responses to my op-ed piece in your local paper, did you?
No.
So, and as our public policy questions show, it's not a third rail. You may actually garner votes, although we have to think about finding somebody to run against Marty. You're not comfortable with endorsing the initiative as written. You have the power, through the entire general court, to put a competing question on that. The Constitution provides us options here, and we know what the people of Massachusetts want. And please, I don't want to keep doing this.
And Steve, we want you to get to that concert.